What's up, guys? I'm back. You don't get away from me every day of the week. I'm now a welcomed guest on this is the weird fun part of this show. This is Rob's show, but I am the special guest this week, and this is Rob's show. I am the special guest this week, so I'm talking first because that's just what happens on Spike Week shows. But really, like super excited for this one. We actually had planned an entirely different show, literally just like not that many hours ago, what we were going to do. But with the Aaron Rodgers news, Russell Wilson news, Calvin Ridley news, Mike Williams news, and just an infinite amount of football updates and some kind of fun exercises we can do from there. We're going to dive into all the latest and greatest around the NFL and start talking some fantasy impacts and plenty more. So let's just go ahead and get into it.
All right, I'm taking my show back. Erik did the intro, but I'm taking my show back. There's been enough chaos today. We don't need any more.
That is true.
So, yeah, what a freaking day. We've been talking about it for like 4 days now. Me and Erik have been DMing. I had a whole like preview video ready to go for today's show. We're like, yeah, well, we'll just do this because this is like the last week before some stuff's going to start happening before free agency. And then Calvin Ridley bets $1,500 on NFL games. And then the world breaks, just goes nuts. So we're pivoting and we're glad you guys are here to join us. Please make sure you're pressing like, subscribe. If you're on iTunes, leave us a 5-star review. Please say that we're the best ball stuff that you've heard. It really helps us out. So we would like for you to do all of that. But for now, where do we even start? Do we just start with Rodgers? I mean, what are we doing? Like,
I think since this is a fantasy focused show, I think it has to be the Rodgers thing, just because we'll get into the Ridley thing, but like the Ridley thing is really just about Calvin Ridley, right? Like there's not really any like trickle down, like any real serious trickle down effects or like downstream effects to the Calvin Ridley news. Rodgers was like, people would have been like drafting stacks on Underdog around where will Aaron Rodgers end up, right?
Right.
Like I'll draft Aaron Rodgers and I'll take like the Broncos were the kind of most clear and obvious one that's been the rumor, blah, blah, blah. And so now that he's back, it's kind of like that was the most likely thing. I'm still sort of processing, honestly, the Aaron Rodgers news, mostly because the Russell Wilson news dropped so quickly thereafter. And I feel like that's like really the biggest shakeup. So the Aaron Rodgers thing, I'm still sort of percolating on, so I'm interested in kind of what you think. I've mostly been like status quo on Devontae. Like I have a lot of Devontae Adams. I've been drafting Devontae Adams because I felt like it was like risk-free value on the best the second best wide receiver in the NFL for fantasy. I just been scooping him up as much as I can because at the end of the day, he was probably still going to play with Aaron Rodgers. So who cares? And Aaron Jones, I think, was a pretty strong value, and AJ Dillon probably pretty similarly. But I went through the process literally 15 minutes ago before we got on and posted rankings updates. And like I didn't really move Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon that much. I did actually move Devontae Adams up. I don't know if that's a hot take. I moved him ahead of Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, behind Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, how can you not?
Yeah, he's just. I mean, he was Cooper Kupp basically before Cooper Kupp did what he did last year.
Right.
And so I love Jefferson and Jamar Chase, but I just would rather take, the thing is, it feels like I wanted to say I would rather take the safety in Devontae Adams, but it's like, it's not safety. It's also ceiling. Like the guy could score 20 touchdowns, so he just feels like a total risk-free pick. And so I moved him up, but it didn't end up being from a fantasy standpoint, which we'll get into more later, other than the other possibilities of where Rodgers could have ended up, it didn't end up shaking up that much for me. I don't know about you.
So for me, I've been drafting a lot of Aaron Jones the last 2 weeks, and David brought up the point in the chat and said, "Rest in peace, tremendous values on Aaron Jones," because I think we did this show 4 or 5 weeks ago. That's when the barber butchered me, and I said I thought Rodgers was gone, and I did feel that way at the time. And the last 2 weeks, I've been like, he's coming back. Like it's just. Now it's obvious he's coming back to Green Bay, and once he does, Aaron Jones is going to vault back up. He's probably going to make it to the second round by the end of the summer, I would assume. So I'm getting him in the fourth round in regular big board drafts.
Yeah, regular big board, he was going in the fourth, not even super flex.
Yeah, so like the regular big boards, I started grabbing him a ton because it's like if Rodgers comes back, he's a steal. I probably should have been taking more Dylan at the same time too if I didn't get Aaron Jones. That was probably a big mistake on my part. But it elevates everybody. It elevates the running backs. It brings Davante Adams right back up to where he should have been anyways because he's just Davante Adams. I know there's some uncertainties, but again, come on. And it even brings a guy up like Tanyan. Now he's like a great second tight end.
That's a good call. Yeah, I did move him up. You're right. That's a very good call on Tony.
So now you're not scared to take him anymore, like because he's going to move up, but he's not going to move up to past the 12th round, probably 13th, maybe at best. So I'm so now I don't mind grabbing some of these other guys like the Lazards and the MVSs and. It elevates Green Bay. And this is what we talked about a few weeks ago when we were ranking the offenses. Like Rodgers comes back, it changes everything in the aspect that we're going to be looking to take more one-offs of these guys. And we're still not looking to go out of our way to completely stack this team. But now it's like, okay, well, yeah, I do want Aaron Jones. I do want Davante Adams. If I get Aaron Rodgers at a reasonable cost, I want Aaron Rodgers. It's just rinse repeat with Green Bay. I mean, there's nothing different now. So
yeah. So I was just pulling up Underdog and starting with Rodgers. Like I feel like people are rushing to, and again, it's a super flex contest that is open right now. So there is obviously a little bit of a different nuance with that, but I feel like the whole world is higher on Aaron Rodgers in fantasy than I am. He's just a guy like, if it works on the right, maybe I get Davante and he falls. And it makes sense. I don't have a quarterback yet or something, and it makes sense for my team. I'll take him. Yeah. But I almost never draft Aaron Rodgers. Just it doesn't. He's not this awesome fantasy asset. He's like, you're fine. You're never like upset he's on your team, but he's never going to be the reason that you win either. Nope. Obviously, he did the 50 touchdown thing a couple of years ago on the I'm going to screw over the Packers because they drafted Jordan Love situation. But in general, he's just not, he doesn't run. He plays so ungodly slow.
I was just going to say that pace is so slow on that offense that the only good time to draft Rodgers was last season when everything was really uncertain and he was really falling down. And it was like, that was when you wanted Rodgers. Now everything's going to be worked out in March this year. How much Aaron Rodgers are you going to have?
Based on, again, this is super flex, but where I'm seeing him go is out of this world. Like nothing has changed. There's quarterbacks who last year we were excited about, like as rookies in particular, Trey Lance, Justin Fields. There's more reason to like Russell Wilson. Deshaun Watson might be back. Jalen Hurts has another season with probably better weapons. There's more guys to be excited about in his tier at quarterback. And nothing has changed for him. In fact, it might get worse. They don't have any money. They don't have it. Like bringing him and Davante back is like they're so far over the cap that they're going to have to do some crazy shit to make all this work. And so it's like you said, it's just going to be wash, rinse, repeat for the Packers, which is fine, but it doesn't make Aaron Rodgers this like insanely valuable fantasy quarterback, right? He's never going to like truly outperform his ADP. Like he might rise it, right? He's being drafted as the QB9. He might be the QB6. And like, whoop-de-doo. Right. Like who really cares about that? And so almost never, basically. I don't want to say never because sometimes, guys fall, or like I said, it makes sense. Maybe you drafted Devontae and the board breaks for you, but he's just not a guy I'm going to be targeting. And you can get everything you want from Aaron Rodgers by drafting Devontae Adams.
Right.
Like, just draft Devontae or Tonyan or both. You don't have to take Aaron Rodgers, right? You can wait a little bit, take your Hurts, Russ, Fields, Watson, maybe when we figure out where he's going, or if you like, a later round guy, or you get an actual upside quarterback, right? Lamar, Kyler, obviously Josh Allen, guys that can actually distance himself from the field at quarterback. So he's just a guy I don't really care about. And the news today has made him, like, I did one super flex draft and he went 6th overall. And that's just crazy to me.
Well, those super flex drafts are crazy to begin with.
Yes.
Which we'll talk about at some point. I'm probably not tonight, but yeah, those are crazy. That I think your point is perfect. The Packers are such a value, with the exception of Devontae Adams. Obviously, he's a first rounder, but like, he's a back end first rounder who's got top first round upside. So even he's kind of a value. The only guy that you worry about is what Aaron Jones is going to rise up to. I think he's going to rise up to the second round. But like, all these ancillary pieces, like your Tonyans, your Lazards, your MVS.
Josh does bring up a good point, which I had totally forgotten because I haven't looked back at the Packers in such a long time. But yeah, Tonyan is a free agent. So
is he?
I mean, that could be okay too, right? Where the tight end free agent market is like drying up so fast with everybody getting franchise tagged that who knows, maybe Tonyan lands somewhere. So I think he's still reasonable, but I do find it hard to believe unless he takes like crazy team friendly deal wanting to play with Rodgers. I do find it they're just in cap hell, and I know the cap is fake, but at a certain point you do have to pay the piper a little bit.
Yeah, but the good thing for them too is from what I read, and I'm not like well versed in this deal completely. From what I was reading, what they're going to be doing with him is his deal's nuts. Like, this Rodgers deal is going to be nuts, but it's actually going to be more team friendly than it was last year. So they're already looking at ways to make this work more.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they're going to have to do some stuff, but I think they're going to move some money around there. And a guy like Tonyan, he's not going to come back after an injury and try to prove it one more year with Aaron Rodgers to get a bigger contract the next year. I mean, it seems fairly reasonable that he might do something like that. So
yeah,
I wouldn't be shocked if he's back there.
Right. Catch 10 more touchdowns playing with Aaron Rodgers and then go get your big money.
Yeah, then go sign with Cleveland and die a slow death.
Like every tight end.
Yeah, that's what they do. So that being said, we find that out. I turn around for 4 seconds and Russell Wilson's traded. So they trade, and the deal, the eyebrow raising thing to me was Fant being part of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, because when I saw Russell Wilson go to Denver, I've been talking about Denver all year, like all offseason. Like, they get a quarterback, I want every piece of this offense. I want Judy, I want Sutton, I want Fant.
Mm-hmm.
And they include Fant in the deal to go to Seattle. So rocket ships for Albert. Oh, like, and yes, I can say it's Akui Boonham. So
Akui Boonham, yeah.
So I'm allowed to tout him per your tweet.
Even if you look on Google, some of the like Google like articles or anything that's at the top, because I looked it up because I wanted to see if there was like a bunch of people looking this same thing up, and it is a popular Google search. But even some of the like Google Translate type stuff is wrong. It is Akui Boonham.
Yeah. Just to wrap up this Green Bay thing, because Bollock brings up a point in the chat. He says Jones will go up, but still in a fragile situation, has to be hyper efficient, a slow paced offense to stay in top 2 round value. Also return 28 this season, where the decline starts for RBs. Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I was saying I like to get him in the 4th round. Yeah. When he starts to creep up to the 2nd, I get a little nervous. But you got to remember, like, once we start getting these July and August drafters, they're going to see Aaron Jones and they're just going to snap, grab him. So if we're grabbing him, we got to do it now. We got to do it in May if he's still down 3rd round or whatever.
Yeah.
because that's when you're getting him out of value. If you want him at all, if you don't want Aaron Jones, I'm not going to sit here and say you have to have Aaron Jones. Yeah, it's not the greatest situation, but he still produces, and he hasn't proven that he's not going to yet.
Yeah, he's hyper efficient. Playing with he's the perfect skill set to fit with Rodgers because he's a dynamic receiver, and Rodgers, definitely with not running anymore is and the way Rodgers the funny thing about the way Rodgers plays is like, he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, but he's very unwilling to make a mistake. And so that turns into, okay, nobody's open, check down to Aaron Jones, right? Yep. I mean, even A.J. Dillon, when Jones was out, was catching a shitload of passes because that's just the way Rodgers plays. He's not going to throw an interception. And so that creates, a lot of value for Aaron Jones. And you do have, like I totally agree with Bullock's comment on, I'm not even like a big Aaron Jones guy, but just by being in that offense, just by being in that role, what we see it every year. He has one or two of those games where he scores 40 something fantasy points, 4 touchdowns, 100 yards rushing, catches a couple touchdowns. The game this year was at least 3 receiving touchdowns, I think it was. And so he just has that spike potential. And so again, he's not going to be like, I'm not going to take some crazy stand on Aaron Jones, but he's a value. He's a value.
He's a value, and he's a guy that could definitely be the reason you win a tournament at the end of the year, because that 3 touchdown week might come at the end of the year. So
yep.
In that range, I know a lot of guys should be able to do that, but we know he can do that. So,
and this is the range, real quick. I know we're talking about the Packers thing a lot, but where CS Nerd says it was tough to pull the trigger because that is like always a great wide receiver range, right? DJ Moore, Mike Evans, Deontay, Elijah, RIP, Amari Cooper, and then you have Dylan later as kind of that fallback option who he says is cannibalizing those touches. I totally agree. Like it's no shade on those guys, but Jones would be a guy on the teams. Maybe I start 3 wide receivers or something like that, where Jones would, or if I want to do something with a robust running back start, Jones does make a lot of sense to me on certain teams.
He's been more of the robust teams, so he's been the second or third that I grab on those teams when I do make those teams. But I have put him on some teams that I had some wide receivers, and that all changes because now he's going to move up. He's going to be a third. He got sniped. I did one flex draft today where he was down the queue, like a good 12 people. And I was like, I'm snagging him next because I was in one of those spots where I drafted either, I think from the second or third spot. And I'm like, I want him for this team that I'm building. Mm-hmm. And 13, 14 spots, I had no idea that anyone before me was going to snag him, and boom, pick right before me, gone. I'm just like, Jesus, it's already starting with him. So, yeah, it's the people that are drafting now are going to be keen on it, right? And we're already going to move him to the third, and then I just think he gets moved up to that mid-second, and I'll still have some of them, but I won't be going nuts with them.
Yeah.
But back to this Denver thing. Why are people thinking that Russ is washed? Why is that even a thought?
I thought it's so funny because we had a conversation in the Discord today with Josh, who is here in the chat, and some other people, and I ended up taking the totally opposite stance of like what I believe about this deal and what I believe about Russell Wilson. Everything, again, my bubble, but everything on my Twitter timeline was like, do people actually think Russell Wilson is still good? And I'm like, what? What do you mean is Russell Wilson? Like, you don't think Russell Wilson is good? Like, how many good quarterbacks are there then? If Russell Wilson is not good, how many good quarterbacks are there? 5, 6? So, like, how many good quarterbacks are in the NFL if he is not good? So that take to me was just absolutely bizarre. However, I do think on the flip side, I think both things can be true. A lot of people can think Russell Wilson is maybe not as good anymore. And then the market is like very sucked into this news. It's like, oh my God, look, the Broncos got a quarterback. And I personally think they're still at a minimum a tier down from the super elite teams, like just pure football, not necessarily fantasy related, but pure football. They're still nowhere near as good as the Chiefs. Definitely not as good as the Bills. And then you have the situation with these other teams that maybe they're close to as good as, but when you have a veteran, you just traded a bunch of assets for a veteran, more expensive quarterback. And the Bengals just made the Super Bowl with a rookie QB contract, tons of resources. And the Chargers are in the same situation. Chargers have like, I know they just re-signed Mike Williams, but the Chargers had like $57 million of cap space coming into this offseason, and so those teams are going to be in my opinion, in better situations than even the Broncos. And so on one hand, I'm like the Broncos had to do this. It was either live in purgatory and not compete, or make this move given the rest of their roster. But I still don't think that he's not Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. He's awesome. I'm still a big believer in Russell Wilson, but I think from like an NFL tiers perspective, they're still in that like second or third tier, however you want to kind of break those top teams down, like top 10, back end of the top 10, something like that as an NFL team. But for fantasy, obviously, which is what we're here for, it's a really exciting situation because I am in on Russell Wilson.
I think it's the perfect situation. And so just to go back to the whole he's washed thing. So everyone that's saying he's washed were the same people that were like, we need to let Russ cook. We need to let Russ cook. If Russ can cook, then he's going to go nuts. He's going to get a chance to cook now because of everything you just said. He's on the Denver Broncos. They're a really good team probably now. Yep. They're not a great team. They're in the perfect division for this because they're going to be playing the Chiefs twice a year, the Chargers twice a year, the Raiders twice a year. So that's 6 games right there where it's big shootout potential. Oh, by the way, they finished 4th in their division last year, right? So that means that they're playing all the low seeds in the AFC, which is the Jaguars, which is the Texans. So they're going to have these unbelievable matchups there. I don't remember which NFC division they're playing this year, but it all checks out for Denver this year. Like, it was a great fantasy-wise. It's a tough division to get them through, like if they're trying to win a Super Bowl. But fantasy-wise,
right.
Was there a better spot than Denver for a quarterback to go right now? Like,
no.
Right this moment. There wasn't. We have Judy. We have Cortland Sutton. We still have Albert O. Oh, they got a great running back in the backfield with Javonte Williams. They're probably not getting Melvin Gordon back now, is the rumor, because of this deal. Even better. So everything we want. Oh, and there's KJ Hamler. Like, what am I missing here? Why is he? Oh, now he's just washed. Come on. Like, they're going to trade 2. I think someone brought up the point. They're going to trade 2 2s and 2 1s and say that he's washed.
And Noah Fant and what they give up Shelby Harris, who's a good defensive player. Like, they gave up a lot to get this guy. Do you really think that if he was truly washed, that they would give up all of this? Like, NFL teams clearly, and not that NFL teams are always right. I disagree with them plenty, just as I'm sure you do and tons of other people do. But like, not on Russell Wilson.
Right. Yeah.
I disagree with them on Jimmy Garoppolo. I disagree with them on Jimmy Garoppolo. Yeah. Or drafting a running back in the first round or whatever, which are like, have been largely proven to be incorrect. The Russell Wilson he took a small step back last year from a performance perspective, but like that happens. Like, performance isn't always linear. You know what I mean? And situation and context matters. He was in one of the best divisions in football. The team took a step back, and it's freaking Pete Carroll and a dunce team that just wants to run the ball, even though they have Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Like, sometimes people want to get so attached to the results of what happened, and the results of what happened were Russell Wilson took a step back last year, like performance-wise, point blank, period. But like, we can also be smart. Like, I kind of believe like in the where there's smoke, there's fire thing. And people think about that like from a rumor perspective. But like, if all of these variables add up to explain why maybe the performance took a step back, it's like we can give that guy the benefit of the doubt when he's done it for 10 years.
Right.
As an elite guy, he can still move. The arm strength isn't gone. Nothing has changed about his physical ability.
Still one of the smartest runners in the league.
Yep.
Like, him, have you ever seen a quarterback more intelligent in what he does when he runs with the football, knowing when to get down, knowing when to get out of bounds? He's probably one of the best to ever do it in that respect.
Yep.
So that doesn't change. He gets to throw a bit more now, for sure. He's not waving his no trade clause to go hand it off 35 times a game. You know, he wants to cook. They want to let Russ cook. He's not going to sit there and drop back 50 to 60 times a game. I don't imagine, but he's going to be playing more of a high pace offense than he has been in Seattle. It's almost impossible not to. Yep. So this dude has a chance to come and win or be in an MVP like running in Denver. Everything is set up that way. They're just not, I don't think they're set up to win like a Super Bowl, but they're set up to have like a crazy fantasy year. So,
dude, talking about the schedule. So I pulled this up. This has me just like, I went from 6 to midnight while we were sitting here talking about it. So the hold on, I got to read this now. The AFC West, obviously, like you already outlined, 6 of the games are like, every time those teams match up, it's going to be like the highest total of the week, right? When those teams play, they're all shootouts, basically.
Right.
Then they play the AFC South, which, if you're not familiar, the AFC South is the Texans, the Jaguars, the Colts, and the Titans, the worst division in football, and 2 of the worst teams in football, 2 of the worst defenses. And the NFC West, Rams, Cardinals, Seahawks, which is pretty awesome, and 49ers. 49ers.
Yeah.
So all these, literally every week is either a garbage defense or a high-powered offense. And so it's just like shootouts and fantasy, goodness galore for the Broncos.
Plus they get the Jets because they'll get the worst AFC team. They'll get the worst AFC East team. And they'll get who was the worst AFC North? Was it the Browns?
I think it was the Browns. Right. It was. Yeah, it was. That's crazy to think about.
So somehow it was the Browns. So their schedule, I mean, it sets up to be potential. I mean, they're not going to shoot out every week, but they have the potential to shoot out every week. So give me all of the Broncos. I was already on the Broncos. I knew they needed a quarterback, and they're smart to make this trade. You either win now or you're rebuilding. That team was built to win now. The other team that I think this affects is the Steelers, who are also built to win now. So what is this team going to do? Like, the Denver did what they needed to do to make this win now team happen. Now, if they win the Super Bowl or not, whatever. I mean, I personally don't care because I don't care about the Denver Broncos. But the point is, they're doing what they're supposed to do with the way they have their roster right now. I mean, what else are you going to do? You're going to just sit there and let these guys just a halfway decent defense and all these offensive studs just sit there and have nobody throwing them the football? We're going to do Teddy Bridgewater again. Come on.
This is what you have to do. Like,
you have to.
Because it's football. It's not baseball or basketball, right? Like, you have Mike Trout. You got him for 10 years, and he's probably really going to just be Mike Trout for 10 years, right? In football, you have Jerry Jeudy. In 5 years, we're reaching the end of Jerry Jeudy's career. So if you don't like that, that's sad to say in general. That's just in general, or at least his prime, right? Not that many guys sustain for 7, 8, 10 years outside of quarterbacks. And even then they fall off. And so you just have to make this move. And I mean, everything for fantasy. I mean, so here's the question. We're all saying this, but at what point do you think the market takes this too far? Somebody in the Discord, which if you have not signed up for the Discord, go to spikeweek.com. It is, I say this on like every stream now, but it's actually because I mean it. It's like the most incredible resource in terms of talking. Like, if you have a question, if you have an idea, if you just did a draft and you want feedback, if you just want to lurk, you don't even want to post, you just want to lurk and see what other smart people are saying. Literally, I develop all of my thoughts in there, talking to tons and tons of smart people. So just go to spikeweek.com. It's 100% free. In the header, there's a link to the Discord. But we were talking in the Discord today, and somebody mentioned, I think it was Karain, said he either thinks or he saw someone say or something like that, but that Jeudy will be like an early 3rd round pick after all this. And that's pretty rich. That's pretty rich. And I like Jerry Jeudy as much as the next guy. But like, we don't really know whether it's going to be Jerry Jeudy or Cortland Sutton or Albert O or Tim Patrick or KJ Hamler, or it's just like they all chop it up and it's Javonte Williams season. Like, they have so many options. Like, I think I want all of them. Like, I literally want to draft all of these guys, but they can't all hit either. You know what I mean? There's just
no, but we learned our lesson on this last year, like
with Debo,
the 49ers thing. We thought this, so I'm just gonna say the top 2, which is Sutton and Judy, and I like Judy more. But we learned with Ayuk and Debo that you just draft the later guy. You just let that other guy be undervalued and you just draft him. So if they do start shooting, because I've been drafting more Judy than Sutton right now, but clearly the value is going to change. I don't think he's going to be as high as Crane's saying.
I was thinking fifth.
Yeah,
like Ayuk last year. He'll be like Ayuk last year, and Sutton will be like Debo this year.
Yeah, so like that's I think it's the perfect comparison. So maybe I'm still going to grab some Judy. I'm not going to like completely X him out of my player pool, but it's like, well, if I'm going to get Sutton in like the 8th, and you could get Judy in the 5th, we're just smashing Sutton, right? Like this is what we're doing. I've learned my lesson on this. It's not, and I don't think Kupp Woods is comparable because those guys were like right next to each other.
Literally, like ADP was literally like right next to each other.
So for me, it's more of the Ayuk Debo. So,
freaking goddamn Bible narrative. So first, David says Levitan is touting the Bible narrative with Sutton for what it's worth. And the best part about this is like sometimes you can't tell if it's a bit. I know Levitan it's a bit, but people will be like, by the way, like when he puts in for what it's worth, that just that kills me. Like, by the way, in case you missed it, there's a Bible narrative in play.
Cooper Kupp eats breakfast with Matthew Stafford.
And then Max says, per Levitan, it's Bible. Sutton's the Bible guy. So imagine taking Judy.
Yeah.
Imagine taking Judy. But I think I was going to say how I approach it is kind of what you said is I'm in a situation just like the 49ers last year. It's not apples to apples, but it's a situation I want, right? I wanted George Kittle. I wanted Brandon Ayuk. I wanted Debo. I wanted the running backs. I wanted all of it. I'm not full fading. I would never full fade any of these guys. I do not care what Javonte Williams' cost is. I do not care, honestly, what Jerry Jeudy's cost is. I will not full fade them. When we get to May and we start having this conversation again, I think it's foolish to do so if you believe the same thing that we believe about the Broncos offense, that it's something worthwhile to invest in from an upside perspective. However, you can be smart about how you approach that, right? Like, let's say last year you wanted to match the field with Ayuk, right? 8 to 10% of Ayuk, just because you believed in this offense. But Debo, you're like, well, I can get Debo 2 rounds later, so I'm going to take 20% of Debo. Like I had like 25% Debo last year. He's my highest owned wide receiver. And that's the same thing. I was like, I didn't full fade Ayuk, but Debo was like, and in that case, and it might actually be the same thing here. I feel like we knew Debo was better than Ayuk. Like as a true, pure football player, maybe not, flashy young wide receiver because Ayuk started to break out last year, but like raw, pure football player with the ball in his hands, all that. Debo just couldn't stay healthy.
Right.
That's not the situation we have here. Judy is just like the younger player. Sutton has never not been good in the NFL. in the NFL.
What, a year though? Like it's not a big, it's not huge.
Yep.
So I don't know, man. I love Jerry Jeudy this year going into it, knowing he was going to get a quarterback. And I still would love to have more Jeudy than Sutton personally. But if it's a massive gap, it's just so clear to me that you just pound on Sutton.
See, I think it's going to be. I think it might be a bigger gap than the Ayuk Debo thing when the dust settles.
Then it's like 30% Sutton. Like that's probably what I'm going to have. Is somewhere around 30% Sutton if that's the case.
He's also, if we really want to get our freaking hands in the dirt, Sutton was crushing down the field with Teddy Bridgewater.
Mm-hmm.
When everybody else was out, like when Jeudy was hurt, Sutton was commanding Sutton led, I think he had the highest air yards, like total raw air yards in a game last year or something like that. It was absolutely something insane, like 300 air yards with Teddy Bridgewater because he's just awesome down the field. Russell Wilson, spoiler, incredible deep ball thrower, absolutely incredible. Like that's the best thing about what he does. So if we're like matching archetypes, I feel pretty damn excited for Courtland Sutton and KJ Hamler too.
So you're not a fan of Teddy Bridgewater?
I love Teddy. Teddy is way underrated. Teddy is like always a top 25 quarterback in the NFL, but it's just that he's like 24th. And so like, he's just not really that good, but he's a starting NFL quarterback and nobody's ever content with a starting NFL quarterback. But like he just always gets underrated. I'm a big Teddy fan. I'm a stan. 2 years ago when he was the Panthers quarterback, I got two. I'm a sick fish, but 2 years in a row, just like smashing these Panthers quarterbacks with DJ Moore and CMC and everything like that. But Teddy was actually pretty good, much better than Darnold.
Darnold was good for 3 games.
He led the NFL in rushing touchdowns after 4 weeks.
Yeah, so I mean, it was looking good. And I have a special place in my heart because I'll dox myself, but I live in a town called Bridgewater. So that's why we do the Teddy Bridgewater Boston accent.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a big joke around here. And by here, I mean like me and my dog. So
Bollock says ETR just updated their underdog rankings. Suck at ETR. I beat you. Judy at wide receiver 18. I think I might be higher. Hold on. I have it up. Oh shit, this isn't updated. What the hell?
So they got him as a 2-round difference. They got him overall 42 and 66.
Damn it. I pulled up the wrong. All right. I fucked this up. Pardon my French. But I think I'm at 19.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm at 19, and what do they have? Sutton 34. I'm about the same as them on Judy, and I think I'm higher on Sutton, and then Hamler and Patrick are both for the same thing for me, are in the 60 range. I just put them like pretty much right next to each other because I think it's kind of dealer's choice between those two guys. But so kind of like what we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
At the market on Judy, higher on Sutton, and probably higher on the other two guys too.
So with the news of Rodgers staying in Green Bay, and with, as my dog walks by and distracts me, and with Russell Wilson going to Denver, what is this doing to some of these other teams? Like, for instance, I brought up Pittsburgh. What does that do for the Pittsburgh Steelers now? They've got to be scrambling, right?
Yeah. The Steelers, to me, feel like they're the team that's going to draft somebody and sit in purgatory for a few years and hope that this guy hits.
I think they got to get Winston. I think that's the only logical spot for Jameis Winston now, because you could still draft your guy because Winston's not a 10-year starter.
Yeah.
But I looked at the Steelers like I look at Denver before they got their quarterback. They have a win now offense with an even better defense than Denver. How do you bring a rookie quarterback into that? And how do you expect that team to buy in? So, fantasy aside, that team needs some sort of veteran, like guy, like he doesn't have to be 50 years old, but they need a guy that can come in and command this offense. And if they get that guy, like I think all you have now is Winston. Because who knows this Deshaun Watson thing? Like what's going on there? Like, so I can't even put him into a situation because we don't even know what his off the field situation is.
Right.
So yeah, Deshaun Watson, let's just put it on the table now. Deshaun Watson is the answer for any of these teams that still need a quarterback. But we can't make him the answer when we don't know what the hell's going on with him. So unless you have something to add about Deshaun Watson other than that, like
I prefer not to comment on guys that are big rub and tug fans. It's really not. There's no winning situation.
Oh my God! Did you see
happen.
His comment about Malik Willis?
Oh my God! Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up. Like, dude, phrasing. Like,
the
please,
worst
God,
phrase. I might be paraphrasing a little. He's like, he wants to take Malik Willis underneath his wing because he reminds him of himself on and off the field at that age. And it's just like, whoo, what are we doing, Deshaun Watson? We don't say anything about off the field right now. Actually, just don't say anything.
Just don't say anything. Why is he
talking to anybody? So yeah. So
you think Jameis? You think Jameis? What if so? Okay. Well, we only got like 20 minutes or so left, and what we were gonna do, but we can just like start to walk through these other teams.
Yeah.
Doing the rest of these quarterback needy teams. Little thought experiment on if they get let's call Deshaun Watson the last remaining good, like, and let's assume he's playing, or maybe he's suspended 2 games or whatever, right? Because that's what we've learned is as long as you don't smoke weed or gamble, you're probably only going to get like 2 or less games suspension. That's just how it works. Right. Get caught on camera literally knocking your wife the fuck out, it does not matter. 2 games. But so anyway, let's call Deshaun Watson the prize, get for anybody. And then Jameis, Trubisky, maybe one of the rookies in that middle. I'm sure there's probably a free agent, maybe Mariota if you like Mariota, somewhere in there, right? You trade for Huntley, right? There's this middle tier of like, who knows, maybe they're okay type of guy. And Jameis is probably the best one. Or like you get nothing. In the Steelers example, it would be like you're starting Mason Rudolph next year.
Yeah, and they can't trade for Huntley. There's no way Baltimore trades Huntley.
Yeah, right, exactly. Somebody else might be able to get Huntley, but they are not getting.
They're not getting him. So, what's the Baker situation going to be? Are they going to be looking to move on from Baker? Is he going to end up somewhere? Do we think he can revitalize himself? So that's the other guy where you're like, I don't like Baker, but maybe it just might be a Cleveland stigma. So,
or what about, while we're talking about that, so 2 other names that have been floated. One I could see, the other I think is just people floating bullshit rumors in the offseason. But Cousins, people have floated, totally new regime. Maybe they look and see like, we've watched Kirk Cousins and we're really not going anywhere with him as our quarterback. So we want to start over. I don't know what that means. Maybe it's a rookie, whatever. They want to start over, or they get their guy. Or someone has mentioned Derek Carr, which is at least mildly interesting to me now, given what that division looks like. The Raiders might like Josh McDaniels might look in the mirror like, well, I'm not winning for the next several years. If I'm not going to win a divisional game for the next several years. So maybe I can get, if you can get all that for Russell Wilson, maybe you can get 2 1s or something like that for Derek Carr, and they just start rebuilding. I don't know. I'm just floating shit out there, but those would be other guys I think that would be kind of a little bit more off the wall, but they are probably potential trade candidates.
Well, the epiphany that just hit me as we were bringing that up, I liked Carr. I would like Carr to go to Pittsburgh. That would be another fun one. But I just realized who's going to Pittsburgh, and it's going to be Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh, you're right. Absolutely.
That's who's going there. So now we know who Pittsburgh's getting, which sucks. It just really sucks that that's who's going to get Pittsburgh. I mean,
your Chase Claypool shares will be about as dead as your Calvin Ridley shares if Jimmy G goes to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, Freiermuth's going to be fine, but to me, that's where that ends up. So then, if that does happen, who would even trade for Carr that would need him right now is the problem. And
Washington.
Oh, that's a good point. I forgot about Washington.
They would that would be a good move for Washington, honestly. They're not that far away from being able to win that division.
Right.
They're not that far away. And Derek Carr is good enough, I think.
He'd be the second best quarterback in that division.
Yeah.
Because I like Hurts, but he's better than Hurts. So he's only behind Dak and the Giants don't have a quarterback, so we don't have to think about that.
Well, they're gonna sign Mitch. Dayball's gonna bring Mitch in to take Daniel Jones' job. And
awesome. That's gonna go great. It's gonna go swimmingly. It's gonna really crush all your make all your Giant stacks just go absolutely bananas. They're gonna win 3 Super Bowls this year.
I have both them and the Jets are simultaneously going to win the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing.
No, the only stand I have bigger than my Giants and Jets love is my Mitch Trubisky love. Hold on, I got to find the big board. He's my highest home player, I think. No, I lied. Oh, geez, I regret this one. Keyshawn Vaughn, Dallas Goedert, Mitch Trubisky are my 3 highest home players in the big board.
You're
47 teams. Yeah, Keyshawn. This is like I should have just taken Darrington. Darrington's going to get cut. I might as well have taken him over Keyshawn Vaughn. The moment I started taking Keyshawn Vaughn, there was a quote from the combine that somebody asked about it because they don't have another running back under contract besides Keyshawn Vaughn. Fournette and all those guys are free agents. And somebody was like, well, Keyshawn's, the guy coming back. He's a cheap rookie. He flashed a little bit down the stretch, and the coach doesn't even compliment him. The coach is just like, well, you need depth at running back, and, you need to be able to go to multiple guys and have multiple guys you trust. And I was just like, well, that I just wasted all that money.
Because now they're signing Melvin Gordon, and that's going to be the offense there.
Yeah, or a Penny or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so, Penny's going to go back to Pete Carroll because...
But what do you think about this? I know we're pivoting from the QB thing, which we'll go back to. But with Russ gone, do you think Penny will like... That's a disastrous situation for especially like kind of more of an early down running back. Like play with Drew Lock or Malik Willis or something. Like why would he want to go on one of the worst teams in the NFC? I feel like he would want to go somewhere where he can actually produce. I guess money's money, but
money's money. You're comfortable there. They're going to try to establish the run even if they're down 30
that's
points.
True. Mm-hmm.
So you're going to get your touches no matter what there. So it's a place where he might even be able to squeeze out another contract. Probably not, but I just think it's a comfortable thing, and he'll probably just end up signing back there. The Seattle situation, are they just going to start Lock now? What does that do for these wide receivers in Seattle? Or do you think they're going to just try to rebuild this whole thing?
I think so.
So they got to get rid of Lockett, right? Like you got to move on from Lockett if you moved on from Russ.
I think so. I think they should. I think you have to clear house. I mean, do pull a Texans. It's time to rebuild. And they did a lot of the kind of terrible moves going for it with Russ, like the Texans did with Watson, trading countless picks, right? Trading for David Johnson. The Seattle basically did that same thing, but trading for Jamal Adams, a safety who can't cover anybody, first round pick. So they made a lot of those moves. They're trying to recoup those, right, with the Russ thing. But I think you just gotta go all in with that and get rid of Lockett and kind of any other veterans you have. Which I guess that would, if they did do that, even in a bad offense with a terrible quarterback, if Metcalf's the only guy, I moved him down quite a bit, and maybe I'll think about that just based on this conversation that we're having. And same thing with Fant. It's like if it's like Fant and Metcalf and D. Eskridge and Penny Hart or whatever his name is, like even on a bad team, those guys are gonna, we saw that with the Lions and the Texans and everything. Those guys are gonna get there.
At least Locke's gonna throw it. Like
that's true.
So the one thing about that is the Lock to Fant connection's already there. So you can carry that over a little bit. I still don't like it. I still don't like the offense, but I don't think it's a complete graveyard there. It's not a thing I'm going to love, but those might be some value guys for sure.
Yeah. I like that. Fant's really going to fall too, in my opinion. And he should. He should fall because he was priced similarly to how all the Broncos were priced. Like fine, but also to where the market understands the upside exists with Rodgers or another quarterback coming in. Now, obviously, that is totally flipped for him. He's gone from potentially getting Rodgers or Russ or Watson to playing with Drew Lock in an even worse offense.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, there are still teams that need quarterbacks. It's just getting back to that. I think Carolina has to stand pat now with Darnold. I think they're another team that's going to have to rebuild, I guess. I don't know. What do you do with that team? That's the ultimate purgatory team right now, right?
Yeah.
Like because you're definitely not winning.
Awesome. It doesn't make any. They are. Well, their O-line is terrible too. But if they had a quarterback and just invested in the O-line, the defense is really good. Their defense was excellent last year. Now they'll lose like Hassan Reddick and maybe a couple guys, but their defense is still going to be good. And then you still have DJ Moore, Robbie is signed, obviously CMC. They're not lacking for like basically everything besides a quarterback. And like I said, an offensive line. It's just there's only Watson left. No other quarterback can turn them around. And like, what are you going to do? Are you going to extend CMC? Like, you're coming up soon to CMC extension time. Are you going to pay him a boatload of money?
That might be the fun Carr team if Carr were to get traded.
He would. They would crush. DJ Moore would crush with Derek Carr. So would CMC.
That they would run that division too. That's the other thing. That division's bad.
Terrible. Yeah.
That's New Orleans. They're going to be bad.
Without Brady. Yeah, without Brady. Yeah.
Atlanta's going to be bad. Tampa's going to franchise tag Chris Godwin, which why? I just don't get that move either. Other than they know who they're bringing in at quarterback, but who's that? Like, that team's not going to be great. They're going to be mediocre at best. And you have a chance to just take this division over if you got a guy like Derek Carr. So I would like to see Derek Carr go there. I do like the Washington call as well. Garoppolo, I think, has to go to Pittsburgh. It just seems like a Pittsburgh move, but he might end up in Washington as well.
It would be so Washington to end up with Jimmy G, like the last 5 years or whatever of the Washington franchise, and that's what basically any form of trade or quarterback has made the most sense for me today for Washington, because the rumor was, or the report, I guess it's not even a rumor, the report that came out was their offer for Russ was more than what the Broncos offered. Mm-hmm. But the only reason Seattle didn't take their offer was because they refused to trade him within the NFC. They basically made it a mandatory thing, which is so stupid. So stupid.
What does it matter? You just said that you're not trying to win. I get not doing it within the division because you don't want to play him twice a year, but you have to play him once, technically every 3 years at minimum, and maybe once a year if it works out right based on where you finish in the standings. Who cares? What are we doing? Why is this ever a thing?
It should never be a thing. You should trade him in the division. I don't care about trading him in the division, but I get why they do. I get why they do. But you, like you said, you've either made a commitment that this is the right thing for you to do to win, right? Let's say it was I know this is not exactly what happened, but let's say it was a Favre Rodgers thing, and you're like, look, it's time for us to get rid of Favre and let Aaron run the show. Who gives a shit where Favre goes? Because you think this is the best thing for you to do for your friend. If Favre was so good that you never wanted to play him, you would keep him. Right. You wouldn't get rid of him, right? Or you've decided, look, the rubber has met the road. It's time for us to move on and rebuild the franchise. Then who gives a shit? By the time you're good again, Russ is probably not even going to be on the Broncos anyway, or he's going to be old. So who gives a shit?
Yeah, it's absolutely asinine. Oh, we're not going to trade him inside the conference. Come on. If I'm a fan, I'm pissed. It's if I could have got something better, then we want better, because now you've told me you want to rebuild. So, and what was that better offer? Because this offer is kind of bananas.
They got a lot. They got a lot. They did. I think they did pretty well actually in this offer. And so, but that's is they had more than that. Was it 3 firsts?
2.
I know. No, I'm saying Washington. Did Washington offer 3 firsts and 2 seconds and players?
And Seattle's eaten a lot of the money from the Russell contract too. So I wonder if they're saying the offer was better, but maybe they weren't willing to eat as much money. That's got to be it. To me, because if otherwise, you're an idiot. You're a bad GM and you should be fired. Oh, I don't want to trade him within the conference. Yeah, because Washington. Everyone's really, really worried about that Washington-Seattle rivalry that happens every year. That Seahawks Commanders game that everyone gets hyped up about. What are we doing?
Yep.
So yeah, Washington's an interesting team for a quarterback. I just don't know, man. I think this kind of takes the air out of the tires on the quarterback market for the most part. And
yeah, it does.
And it just leaves Pittsburgh holding the bag, in my opinion.
I think Pittsburgh definitely. I think Carolina. I think Carolina and Pittsburgh are fairly similar. I actually think if Carolina got a competent quarterback, they'd probably be better than Pittsburgh, given what the defense is. I think the weapons are. Let's call them the same. whether you pick a different side, I think it's basically splitting hairs, right? CMC, Najee, Deontay, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Claypool. It's all pretty close between all those guys, whichever side you prefer. And then I'm just very bullish on that Carolina defense. And there's just a little more youth across the entire roster. Both coaching staffs are probably a little bit duncy. Matt Rule and what's his name, the former Giants coach, are definitely pretty duncy. So I'm not super bullish on them that way. But these teams are, like you said, pretty much screwed, and that's why I brought up like the Carr and the Cousins kind of thing, because outside of Deshaun Watson, what do these teams do? And then kind of what we talked about right before we hopped on was why I think it's important to talk through this is everybody comes into like this fantasy offseason and you pipe dream about every situation, particularly with quarterback, right? Mm-hmm. It's like we did it with the Broncos because they were the one that was just so obvious that they were going to do it. But
right.
Every other situation, which I've done as well with Washington, I'm smashing Terry McLaurin at his cost. Like I've just been drafting a shit ton of Terry McLaurin, but it's like I'm pipe dreaming about like, well, I mean, it can't get worse at quarterback, right? You know, it's like that meme or whatever, you know, where it's like, you know, it can't get worse at quarterback, right? You know, and you're like, but it's you know. We're doing what's the game where you run around, you have to sit on the musical chairs.
Yep.
Like there's not many quarterbacks left, and there's like 10 teams that want one. So like we can keep pipe dreaming about all these teams, but like
we don't like this quarterback class either for the most part.
Yeah, exactly. If this was last year's quarterback class, it would be a lot more, you know, I know that those guys didn't perform very well, but I still think we're bullish on them long term. This class is not very good. And so it's like there's only so many quarterbacks that are going to elevate an offense when they come in, right? And then the one that's left that you know is going to elevate the offense. Who knows? Who knows what if Watson will even be able to play? If he'll be suspended? Who knows? So it's like there's this musical chairs, and we keep talking about like, oh well, what if Carolina gets a quarterback? What if Washington? What if Pittsburgh? Whatever. And like somebody's going to get Trubisky, and somebody's going to get Garoppolo, and then we're going to get some rookies. And like, are you really excited about any of those? No, you're not, you know?
I mean, I was a little excited about Trubisky, and then I started thinking about it more.
I am.
And I'm like,
you know me.
Yeah, because you like the Giants, and that's the only place he's going to go. So I was thinking about Trubisky more, and I get it. Like, I'm not opposed to it, and I'll take him because his cost is so low, and you can, even in these super flexes, you can still get Trubisky late. So I think he's definitely worth the investment. And like that, I don't know. I think I've gotten him in the 18th round still, 17th, somewhere in that wheelhouse. I don't remember.
He's definitely risen up a lot in the super flex stuff, but like he still goes after all of the like relevant current starting quarterbacks.
Yeah. So, and he'll fall back down in a regular draft again too. We'll be able to get him in the 20th. So until he signs somewhere. So, but my point being is, dude, yeah, Nagy was bad. And this is my hand in the dirt take. Nagy was bad, and he did not help Trubisky at all. But Nagy wasn't underthrowing those receivers by 5 to 10 yards. Right. He wasn't the one overthrowing them by 10 to 15 yards. Trubisky was still bad. He was in a bad situation, but we've seen plenty of guys in a bad situation still play well. He's in a bad situation, and he still played like absolute dog shit. So, yeah, maybe he can turn it around. Maybe he's a late bloomer, but I'm not. My point being is I'm not crazy about a lot of these quarterbacks that are left on the market, other than, again, Watson. But why talk about him? There's nothing to talk about.
It's impossible. It's impossible to talk about him because, you know.
And if anyone that does and says they know what's going on with him, you're a liar.
You're totally full of shit. Yes.
So we've been on YouTube for an hour and 2 minutes, or roughly. Have we made $1 million yet?
Yeah. Why do you think we keep talking?
That's the other big news, is that if you're on YouTube, you make $1 million. So I'm excited because I have 2 shows on YouTube. Yeah, so by the end of the night, I should make $2 million. And I'm pretty excited about that. I mean,
that's what people don't. I talk in Discord all day just to get you suckers to show up to watch this stream because that's how we become a millionaire. Because that's how this works.
Yeah, I mean that's what I saw. I had to bring that up, but that was like one of the most insane conversations I've seen. It was like Rodgers, Wilson, everyone on YouTube's a millionaire.
It's so funny. That was absolutely hilarious. So, before we hop out, predictions on who gets. Let's just do the couple of the heavy hitters: Watson, Jimmy, Mitch. If you would like to throw a wild card in, right, a trade for Huntley or a Mariota or something like that in there as well, and then if maybe some rookies, kind of like let's mix and match some of these landing spots, and then like I said, there'll be musical chairs, and we'll be like, oh shit, Washington doesn't get any of these guys.
All right, so. If I have to include Watson,
Jimmy, let's do Jimmy. Let's leave Watson because start with kind of like the guys that we know for sure somebody's going to pick up. To me, it's maybe you disagree, but Mitch and Jimmy are two free agents that I feel pretty damn confident, or not free agents, but Jimmy's basically a free agent,
right?
That they're going to be a starter somewhere.
Yeah, and so for me, if Watson's off the table, because Watson to Pittsburgh makes even more sense than anybody else, but we're going to leave him off the table. So it is Garoppolo to Pittsburgh, right?
Okay.
So David says Watson to the Commanders. He's a great cultural fit for that team. Accurate.
That is an all-timer.
Yeah, employee of the month there. So that was a great comment, David. So Jimmy to Pittsburgh, it's Trubisky to the Giants because it makes all the sense in the world. Let's do Carr to.
We want to project a Carr. You want to project a Carr trade? I think after today, the Carr trade.
After today, the Carr has to happen, right? Or you would have.
I mean, I would if you were so like. This is the differences. I don't know that somebody mentioned in the chat. Like I'm not. Oh yeah, David did. That not sure McDaniels wants to come in and instantly change things up with it. I kind of think the opposite. If you're gonna do it now because you're not going to get fired for a few years.
Right.
If you wait, if he plays this thing out with Carr for a couple years, spoiler alert, he's not going to win shit in that division against Mahomes and Herbert and Russ. So then you're just going to get fired. So if you're going to do it now. Now, this is what I would do in Madden, right? Like if I took over a Madden franchise, like that's what I would do because I think it's the smart thing to do. But like real NFL teams don't always do the thing that we think.
Well, they have to sell tickets is the difference.
Exactly.
So they have to think of it from the financial standpoint. But at the same time, if you drafted Malik Willis, you're selling tickets to having that rookie quarterback. So I agree with you that after today, they're fourth place. They don't have anything to build around. Like you're not building around Derek Carr because he's probably year 9, year 8, somewhere around that right now. So are we building around Derek Carr? No. Josh Jacobs? No, we don't build around running backs. Speaking of a perfect fit for the Washington Commanders, Henry Ruggs is gone. Brian Edwards turned out to be nothing. Darren Waller's fine, but again, we're not building around a tight end. And that defense wasn't anything. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in full rebuild mode now. We are the worst team in this division, and we need to rebuild it. And, oh, by the way, like you said, you're not beating the Chiefs, Chargers, or Broncos over the next 2 to 3 years. So rebuild yourself so that when that Chiefs downfall happens in 2 years, I don't think the Chargers are going to fall, but you can at least contend with the Chargers in a few years, probably.
Right. The Broncos. This is an all-in now for the Broncos. So avoid the next 3 years, 2 to 3 years of the Broncos. Maybe you hope Mahomes declines or something like that, and you can get back into business in 3 years.
And your ownership in Vegas should know that. I know Mark Davis, my favorite line that I've ever come up with about anybody is Mark Davis looks like a grandmother from Southie. But he's a dope. He looks dopey, but I don't think he's a complete idiot. And I think he knows that. Not even just McDaniels, but any coach he brought in, you have to give this guy 3 years. Whoever the coach is that you brought in, you got to give him 3 years. You know the situation. You know that you're trying to build some sort of winner and not just a purgatory team. So you trade Carr now. You get rid of him. You move him to Washington. Cousins, I think I can't even project a trade for him. He has to stay in Minnesota. So who does that leave us? That Winston?
Winston. Oh yeah, Winston. I should have put him in the Jimmy and Mitch bucket.
So Winston needs to go to Carolina under those situations. I think I hit every team there.
Okay. So what did you do again with Jimmy? Pittsburgh?
Pittsburgh.
I do think that one makes. Jimmy is definitely, to me, Pittsburgh or Washington.
Yes.
For like
Watson makes the most sense for Pittsburgh. If he's on the table, he makes the most sense for Pittsburgh, but I'm leaving him off the table.
I think everyone is gonna. All these teams. I would love to see if any of these teams now that have been left in the dark on Russ and Rodgers, if they had quotes about like we're not interested in Watson because of the legal troubles, right? And watch how quickly they 180 that take after they can't get Russ or Rodgers, because they will. They 100% they would. Now Washington certainly did not have that take. We can almost guarantee that. But Pittsburgh, if they hold themselves to too high a standard, which they employed Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown, so I highly doubt that they have that take either. But we'll leave Watson out. I think Jimmy is just, to me, it's just a lock between Pittsburgh and Washington. It's kind of like whichever one gets left in the dark on. I think they might both prefer Jameis. They might prefer Mitch. We'll see. I don't know how some of these teams view him. And then everybody prefers Watson. But we'll do. I'll confirm that Jimmy to Pittsburgh. I do think my Mitch thing is a little like, it makes a ton of sense, but I do think it might be a little bit more of a pipe dream just because they have this kind of very similar quarterback in house. Like unless Daboll like really believes in Mitch from that 1 year of having him as his backup, I don't think it makes a ton of sense to spend another 10 or 15 million or whatever Mitch is going to command on. I mean, how's he different from Daniel Jones? They're like the same player. So that's what I'm hoping for in fantasy, because I want to be in the Daboll offense and I like the Giants' weapons.
Trust me, I'm hoping for it too, because I am going to dunk on you all fucking season if that happens.
That's the best part about working in this space is you get to celebrate every moment of the offseason when things happen that break your way. And yet 95 to 99% of them are still horrible for you when the actual season gets here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then, or like the Darnold thing is like, I was smashing Darnold and then he lights it up for a month. And I'm just out there, victory lapping, going crazy, calling everybody else idiots. I'm the smartest guy alive. And then we saw what what happened.
Start doing this.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'm going back and deleting all my tweets. But so, Jameis and Mitch are really interesting because I think they're fairly similar. I do think I actually think Carolina is going to end up with one of them. I think the Darnold thing, he was just so bad down the stretch, and Matt Rule does not seem like the kind of guy that will run that back. However, he also does not seem like the kind of guy that would put up with Jameis Winston.
True.
Chucking it around. So I'm going to put Mitch in Carolina, actually, which I'm not sure that's a fit either. But I think that's the kind of thing like, maybe he thinks Nagy is a dunce, and Daboll coached him, so I'll trust Brian Daboll, which leaves Jameis for Washington, I think.
Yeah, which is fun. Jameis in Washington's fun.
Jameis would be pretty good in Washington, I think. Is there anybody else that needs a quarterback? Or what about New Orleans?
Well, I hit Carr. I don't know if you're going to hit Carr.
See, I don't want to do the Carr trade just because that's what I would do. I don't think that they're going to do it.
Yeah,
I
they probably
really
won't.
think they should, though. I really do think that they should.
They should
do it. What about Seattle?
So
Lock or rookie? Rookie?
I think both. I think you just start with Lock and then you just transition to your rookie by week 6. Unless Lock does, I don't even know like what Lock could do to save his starting job, but I think they get a rookie and they start Lock just because if you start Lock for 8 weeks or 9 weeks and he goes 3-5, it's like, okay, well now you've established your losing season. But they got Pete Carroll as the head coach too, and like, why is he part of a rebuild? Like, I don't know, dude. Yeah. What is that team doing? Like, this is a whole nother rant, and I'm not going to get into it. But unless the player's over 40 years old or over 35 years old at quarterback, you pick the player over the coach.
Yes, they could have traded, honestly, kept Russ if they really wanted to. Now, I'm not even saying I don't disagree with them trading Russ, to be clear. I actually kind of think they've backed themselves into this corner. And I think it's smart sometimes when they're able to still trade him at 33 and for 2 firsts and 2 seconds and some good players. Teams will hold on for 2 more years, and then you get like a first and a second for a declining Russell Wilson. And, Pete Carroll has run, maybe they went for it for another year and they traded another first rounder and just totally ruined their franchise. So I give them a little bit of credit for that. But on the flip side, like you said, why the hell would you do it with Pete Carroll? Yeah, Pete Carroll is the reason you had to trade Russell Wilson is because of this guy.
And he's 100 years old. And we're going to do a rebuild with a 100-year-old, like middle of the road head coach to begin with, who luck boxed his way into a championship once. I mean, so that's a whole nother rant. But yeah, I think that Seattle just has to go Lock, and they have to draft a quarterback now.
Draft. So what about I said New Orleans. What's New Orleans going to do? Taysom? They don't have any money either.
Yeah, they're like
Watson. They're not in the Watson sweepstakes.
Yeah, they're the team that kicked the can down the road too much and kicked it right off the cliff, right? So
they don't even have any picks either, do they?
They have nothing. These quarterbacks. They're in rough shape. So Sean Payton just throwing up the deuces was the smartest move ever. You sign whoever you can for nothing. Well, who's the guy that used to always be? He was actually in New Orleans to back up to Drew Brees for all those. McCown. You look for your 41-year-old Josh McCown, whoever that is this year. You sign him for nothing. You have him and Taysom, and you just rotate them until they break, and then you bring in, I don't know, whoever the USFL spits out for 4 minutes, and you play that guy. I guess. That team's they're toast. That's why they got to trade Michael Thomas. But they won't.
If they're really wanting to try to win, who we talked about earlier, the guy who has been the perennial bridge quarterback that every team that's decent brings in when they don't have a quarterback. And they've had Teddy.
Oh, Teddy, yeah.
Because he's been the guy every year, right? Somebody new scoops Teddy up every single year, and they actually had him, right? He played when Breeze got hurt a couple years ago, but now for whatever reason we're going through all these free agents, and we're talking about Trubisky and Jimmy G and all this, and I guess people are just done with Teddy. So someone like Teddy might make sense for New Orleans.
But he might be too much money for New Orleans, like
because he could get a good backup. It's and someone should. If you're trying to win, I would sign Teddy. I would pay Teddy. Like the Chargers should sign Teddy. They have so much money.
That's a great call.
If Herbert gets hurt for a stretch, don't ruin your whole season because Teddy can still win you games. Don't ruin your season playing, whatever to Chase Daniel or whatever for a stretch. The other one that we didn't talk about, the Bucks.
Oh yeah.
Assume Brady is actually retired,
Well, he's not, but he's a starter in San Francisco, as we established.
You're right. You're right. The Trey Lance's mentor, second mentor.
Yes. Well, that one's kind of tough. I mean, can you imagine Jameis going back there? Because I can't.
No.
Like, I just can't imagine that ever happening.
No, not especially not multiple years after.
Well, especially after they get rid of him. They get Brady, they win a Super Bowl, and he's gone. It's like, all right, man, come back. Why don't you come hang out with us again?
So like you brought up the Godwin thing. I think the reason why they tagged Godwin is they still believe like this. They've built this team up. This is their window. It's an old roster. I know Marpet retired and Brady retired, and they're going to have to let some guys go. But I still think that they think, like, if you went to their freaking headquarters, they would be like, no, we're going to try to win the Super Bowl next year.
Yeah, because they have a bad division, and they have a real good chance of just making it to the tourney. And sometimes we just want to get into the tournament, right? Right. So yeah, I get that thought process, but you're not bringing Jameis in. I can't imagine Jimmy signing there. It's just a PR nightmare for him to go to Tampa. Yes. Like if he does, it's just
he won't do that. No,
he can't. He can't do it. Like he just can't do it. So who? Like,
well, I mean, what I think that they're going to want to do is the guy we keep not mentioning is Watson, because they're the team. Yeah. They're the one out of all of these teams that is for sure still in their kind of window to make the playoffs and all of that, as they have proven for the last couple of years. And they're probably going to want to just keep going for it. They have an old ass head coach, an old roster.
Yeah.
Eventually they're going to have to rebuild, but they're not. I don't think that they're ready to rebuild. So they're probably going to put all their chips in on Watson. And if you're Watson, right, do I want to go to Carolina, Pittsburgh, Washington, or Tampa, who was very close to the Super Bowl last year? Well, it's probably Tampa.
And he wants to go to Florida. He wanted to go to Miami for forever long. So, I mean, I guess it makes sense. It's just, again, we're projecting a guy that, where is he going to be on an NFL field? Is he going to be in prison? Is he going to be suspended? Like the NFL needs to figure this out. I understand that they got to let the legal process play out, but this is over a year. Why is this taking so long? Like, it's an absolute nightmare.
Yep.
So, other than that, I think I don't think we've hit on everything because it's just been such a crazy day, but I think we've hit on enough for the moment. Is there anything else you wanted to hit on?
No, I think
come back from vacation and you get all this coming.
That is a lot. Yeah, my mind I'm going to sleep good tonight. My brain has been working overtime today, but we'll come back next week. Hopefully nothing crazier than this week happens, with more of a kind of a macro view of the best ball landscape, kind of a show, as opposed to really diving into all these teams. And I'm excited to talk about that, but we kind of needed to go through this since it's top of mind for everybody today.
And I took a page out of your book, and I actually took Saturday, Sunday off this week. It wasn't a full vacation, but I usually throw together a video for Spike Week or for my other show or write or something. And I took a step back. I played a video game that I was terrible at all weekend.
Nice.
and just got some relaxation. And so now I'm ready to kind of hit the ground running for another couple months and put some stuff together. I'm sure I'll be able to have fun chopping this video up and seeing how stupid we are. But
yes, there's assuredly a lot of stupid takes, and a lot of stupid takes that we'll be able to come back on in the off, once free agency plays out and make fun of ourselves for.
Yep. So that's going to do it for us. I just want to remind everybody to please hit the like button. Please subscribe. We are going to do the giveaway. I know it's the off season. Things don't move as well in the off season, but we do have the jersey giveaway once we hit 600 subs. So I haven't forgotten that. I hope you guys haven't forgotten that. And then once we're at 850, we got the 2 assigned jersey giveaway. So make sure you like, subscribe, do it on iTunes as well, wherever you get your podcast. And other than that, we will see you next week.